Well, as you can see by the surroundings, we've moved on a little from the last time you've seen the plants. We've been side shooting, feeding with a potash feed throughout. We're now in the end of August and the flowers are here to see. First show's coming up, so we're now in a process where we're selecting the flowers to take to the show. And there's one or two problems that always arise during the process, and that is flowers that come out before. We've got to deadhead them, or traditionally you would deadhead them. With these, this is Susan Marsden. You can see that the size of the flower is actually too large. This is a miniature ring and a miniature flower. Now, instead of taking this flower off completely, I tend to just break them over, snap them down, and that will still take some vigour out of the plant and give a chance to the other flowers to come through without being too big. I find it does normally work, but we've got to see what happens. So this is one. The other thing, obviously, especially in this wind, which is traditional, they can bash flowers that you do want to keep. So this one here, we're just going to snap it down. Don't go too low. You just want to bend the top over, and hopefully it breaks rather than breaks cleanly. So we're just going to go down on that. And it folds down, and that's out of harm's way to the other flowers, and also it should still draw some nutrient through there as it finishes off. Same with this one. Again, the flower is finished as far as the centre, it's never going to make the show. We're just going to take that over. Now that leaves us with this flower here. Remembering the show, or cutting for the show tomorrow morning, we want a flower that has a centre that is proportionate, or will be proportionate, tomorrow. Size wise, it goes through the ring. It's one that we need to keep an eye on, because as soon as it goes in water, quite often they grow quite a bit. So do check the size before you stage the vase and before you then go through to put it on the show bench. But that one goes quite clearly through. We can leave that on there. And to secure the flower for going to the show, we then put a cane on it. I just use a 2-foot split cane. Take it down and hold it to the stem as near to the top as you can, so that it doesn't wave around on the end there. And just a twist tie secured at the top. One further down tends to be enough. That will hold that in place and stop that flower from coming into any damage. Also, when I come out here tomorrow to cut the flowers, I know exactly what ones to cut, because they're the ones with the canes on, so it will speed up the process of cutting maybe a couple of hundred flowers in the morning. So there's one. We've now got to go through the rest of the bed and see if we can find a few more to go with it. Looks like there will be. Right, as is traditional, when we start looking at cutting flowers, it rains, it's windy. Fortunately, we've got the covers, and we're now under the covers looking at the giants. This is Canora Valentine. It's one that's dual classified, so it can be shown as either a large or a giant. Intendingly, I've grown them as giants, but what we have here with the large ring on a flower like that, which is nearly there, or certainly will be, is it just may well creep through the large ring. Now, given that we've got pretty much 2 days to judging, this will open more, it's going to go in water, that tends to grow them a little bit bigger as well. Then that should then come under the giant size. Anything over 10 inches really is a giant. This ring is 10 3/4, and it is just touching, so we should be safe on that. We've got a younger bloom just behind there that is actually bigger, and that won't pass through. And again, another couple of days, that's going to be about right for showing. So these blooms will still have canes placed on them. Although they've got strong stems, they do need a bit of extra support because they've got big heads on the top of them. But they'll be good, and as you can see around it, that we've got various stages of development, and that's what we aim to do. We want these flowers to be flowering for the 3-week show period. Now I've only got 2 flowers per plant on this variety, so you need to stagger from plant to plant. So we've got these 2 here that are nearly ready to cut. We've got one just in front, or a couple just in front, that will be at least another 5 days, 6 days of development, and that flower will end up at least that size, if not bigger. One's just behind that are just flicking petals, then we've got probably a good week on those before there'll be a full flower. So that'll be possibly a harrogate flower if we're lucky, and then ones like that, well, we've got at least 2 weeks for that to come. And there's quite a big bed of this variety here, so from this weekend onwards I would hope to have a good choice of flowers throughout the show season. And as the season tends to progress and it gets cooler, it's obviously cooler now and it's raining, they tend to get a bit bigger. They're slow in development and you gain more size for that. But I'm quite happy, we've got flowers to choose from, and as we go down the bed there's a lot more to pick, and we've got plenty to come, and that's the trick, is trying to get a good spread of flower so you don't get all of them at once and then nothing thereafter. Okay, these are the Kenora Challenger. There's a couple of smaller flowers here, as you can see. Probably got another 1.5 inches on those, but they will come. They grow again in water, and there's some larger flowers further down. But again, you can see the staggering of timing that we've got here from full flowers to part and bud. Now, there has been a rather hungry caterpillar pop along. No matter how much we spray and treat the plants, there's always going to be one that gets away, and that was that. And that's completely destroyed that flower. Now we only have 4 flowers per plant on this variety, so that's a quarter of that plant gone in one probably good night session by a caterpillar. And I never did find him, so he's sitting somewhere rubbing his tummy, quite happy. But you can see he's eaten away the whole half of this flower and under there, and that will never ever produce a flower, so best thing to do is to lose it and let the energy of the plant go into the other 3. Happens to the best of us, but keep an eye out for them, and sometimes you can just pinch them off and take them away, deal with them, squeeze them before they cause any damage. Not in this case. Just to show the extremes that dahlias can be, we've got Gertler Twilight, a pom here, which is 2 inches or 52mm, and this is Kenora Clyde. It's about as ugly as they get as a flower is, but what a size. I mean, that's probably best part 13 inches or so. Which way you like is up to you. Some people, do specialise in the poms, some specialise in the giants. I tend to go everywhere in between, but some will appreciate this, but personally I think my money's with the form of the pom. Always impressive when you see something like that, and it's fun to grow, just to see how big you can grow them, but I tend to like my petals where they are supposed to be. We've cut this flower of Kenora Valentine. It's not going to go to any shows, it's just gone a bit spotty at the back. Always remember to take the water to the flower, not walk around the garden with a flower like I'm doing now. We don't want this out of water too long, because otherwise it's going to get air trapped in there and start sealing. I've cut the stem roughly to the cane, but now we're going into the drum. We just need to recut that. There's no point in having too long a stem. So we just cut that, trim it to the bottom of the stem. And then we've got the hollow in the bottom there, and that's what traps the air when that goes into the water. So the flowers in the drum, I'll just use these plastering buckets with a series of holes drilled around the top and a few inches down. I find with 2 ties the bottom of the stem doesn't wheel around too much. And I use a cable tie. I used to use twist ties, but you get wrist ache twisting them around all the time, and these seem to hold them just as firmly, and it's easier to get them through the holes and tied up. So in one, out the other, and we just poke that in there. Once we've got it through, we can do it one-handed and just pull it tight. Be careful if you do use cable ties that you don't pull it so tight, because it will crack the stem if you do. And the second one, which is easier because you can use two hands, through. And that's not going to go anywhere then, the stem is firmly fixed in there. The only thing to do now is to burp the stem, and we just go in with a knife into the stem, twist, and then the air comes out. When you get to the show, I just use a pair of secateurs and just snip the cable ties through. Don't reuse them, I can get these very cheaply. And that's it. Fill the drum up, into the car, and off we go. With poms, they don't flower like the bigger ones, one big flush. They tend to be more sporadic. So it's an ongoing task to go through the plants, side shooting and removing the calyx or the green bracts. The reason we do that is, in an ideal world, we want the pom to finish neatly to the stem, and if you don't remove them, the bracts will stop the lit petals coming all the way back. So first we'll just side shoot. And on this I've been taking 2 pairs away. Now it's not worth trying to remove the calyxes off of this because the bud's small and we'll end up snapping it off trying. The one next to it is ideal. They're splayed out so you can easily get to them, and hence why the dirty thumbnail. All I do is just thumb and finger pinch them out the back. Doesn't matter if you leave a little stub, as long as you remove the bulk of it, and that's done. So they're not going to interfere with the petals coming back. Same on the one at the front, might as well do it while we're here. If they're bunched back like they are, you can always get them together and go through in one go. So it's a tedious task, especially on a large number of plants, but it's well worth doing that to get absolutely perfectly finishing poms. It is necessary, unfortunately, in top competition, and that's as simple as that. Okay, we're at the first show of the season. This is the Essex Dahlia Society show. It's a specialist show, so we've got the full range of varieties here to see.